Take a look. Okay. Hey, can you guys hear me on? Hang tight. Um, all right, that should be fixed, guys. You should be able to hear me now. Sorry about that, guys. Just want to make sure we get the folks on YouTube audio, and for some reason that was not working. It's been 2 weeks of streaming every morning, and you figured you'd think I'd have this right by now. I got it. Manny, get your act together. Let's go. All right, so let's just jump into it. 15-minute chart, guys, where the rubber meets the road, right? So what's our plan for today? The overnight inventory is where we start every morning, right? So let's look at that. Our settlement price yesterday was 71.68, and with the amount of earnings and the volatility yesterday, it's pretty hard to extrapolate. Look at these large prints we had on the 15-minute. I mean, this one print right here was 60 points alone. It was a 71.90 high, and the low came in at 71.34. So just about a 55-point range candle, right? You want to be careful. We want to avoid that print. I mean, you could either get really lucky or really unlucky. You can get smoked in that. So what we want to do is not get lucky. We want to be consistent. So the overnight inventory. Initially on the 6 p.m. open, we opened at 71.50 and price ramped straight up, making a high up to 72.0150. And then we sold off. And so we can assert that all of these early buyers that were buying off the earnings news were liquidated, right? So at that point, once we got to the bottom, we can say, all right, well, I don't think that the inventory is long anymore because all of these longs got liquidated when we took out the Globex open low, right? But then we got this move higher. And so it reset. So all these longs got taken out. All these sellers that liquidated those longs also got taken out on the move higher. So we're going to assert that the overnight inventory is net long, just based on that we made a low at 71.33, and not right now we're trading 7,200. Okay, and the reason why we extrapolate that every morning is typically what you see, rule of thumb, is that when the overnight inventory leans one way or the other, whether it's short or long, and of course it could be balanced, when it leans heavily in one direction, typically what you're going to see around the open is a correction of that inventory. So a counter trend move to that. And if you don't see that, then that's a great tell, and we'll discuss how we can identify that off the open. All right, so our overnight inventory is net long, and the first thing that pops out is the settlement, right? 71.68. So let's frame out the most bullish argument, right? So say we open here at 7,200 and we get an open drive look, right? Which would be a gap and go. We would leave this gap set here at 71.68, which is our settlement price. And all of these buyers are correct. They're happy. They're celebrating their positions, are getting better by the moment. So we get a nice impulsive move higher. The first thing we're going to focus on is what? The overnight high. The overnight high is coming in at 72.1150. So let's say off the open, we get an open drive type look, right? Moving averages hold. and we drive higher, test the overnight high, and break through. So when the market is really big and it's a strong move, we're going to cut right through. I mean, we will see a, maybe 2 to 5 point retracement off the overnight high, but immediately cut back, reverse, and liquidate those sellers that were present there and break out higher. At that point, what we can do is we can start looking for long ideas with our backs up against the overnight high at 72.1150. All right. So what we also have to be on alert for is the trap trade. So say we look above the overnight high, fail to gain any traction, and we come right back into the overnight range. At that point, we can look for counter trend scalps with our risk marker being the overnight high. Okay. And at that point, then what we would be looking for is a move down to the settlement, and perhaps even look for a move down to yesterday's high, 71.90. And if it really has strength and momentum, then we're looking for a gap fill at the settlement, 71.68. All right, so that covers the most bullish argument as well as the potential trap trade above the overnight high. All right, so let's move along. Let's discuss the most bearish argument. So say price opens here at 71.89, and our first move is straight down to the settlement. We get some type of a retracement here, but just bust right through it and test value area high and yesterday's volume point of control, which is the price that were the most volume transacted yesterday. All right. At that point, then once we get below the settlement, then we can start looking for short scalps back down to the volume point of control. It's probably better to wait at that point for a long trade, staying in line with the trend, right? So perhaps we come down, we test the settlement, test value area, get rejected, put in a higher low, and then we could start looking for long ideas on any break of trend line that target yesterday's high, 71.90.75. Okay, so that covers the trap trade. If we get below the settlement and get below the volume point of control, then we get a move even further down to the Globex Open, 71.50, perhaps even down as low as value area low, which is the lower portion of yesterday's value area at 71.45, and then maybe even a test of the overnight low at 71.33. But remember, if ES is selling, we're going to know it because it moves quick and fast, hot knife through butter, takes no prisoners, and several supports break like they weren't even there. All right, so that covers the most bearish argument. We also have the trap trade idea. Again, we're going to discuss also, say we get a really good, strong liquidation break where all of these sellers from the overnight session are being liquidated. Okay, at that point, let me just get a screenshot of this. Okay, at that point, what we're going to look for is we would probably be in a scalp trade from below, having lost the settlement, right? Where we come back up, test it, it fails to gain acceptance above, then we can look for short ideas that get us down to volume point of control, or even if not, value area low at 71.45, and potentially a move down to yesterday's low at 71.35. Okay, so that's the most bearish argument. So we get a trap trade down here also where we get below yesterday's low, test below it, and we know how important that level is because it's been several day support highlighted here on the left 2-hour chart. Say we fail to gain any traction, we look below yesterday's low, 71.35, look below the overnight low at 71.33, and then reclaim it. At that point, we're going to start looking for long ideas and long entries for a move back into the value area, with our first target being that value area low, 71.45, and then maybe even a potential a move up to settlement at 71.68. All right, so first thing we can know is off the open here, we're all those overnight longs are being liquidated. All right, so now we covered the most bearish, the most bullish argument, the trap trade, And we also covered the most bearish argument as well as the trap trade, right? Now let's cover the worst case scenario, the dreaded sideways day, right? So at that point, where we say we're opening here at 71.83, and we start, the first sign of a trap of a sideways movement would be like your first couple of prints or dojis. Obviously, we're not getting that here, but say we come down and test the settlement, test at 71.68, test the volume point of control, which is where the most volume transacted in yesterday's regular trading hour session, 71.59.50, and we find support and price just comes back up, reclaims the settlement, but fails to gain any real traction to the upside. At that point, what we're going to do is use the initial balance. So the initial balance is where the range of the first 30 minutes of the day, we could use that as our kind of our bookends. And instead of looking for breakouts or directional bets, we can start looking at more scalp ideas that keep us in line and with small targets and keep us inside the daily range. We'll know that if we see it, if we fail to gain any traction on the low side, fail to gain any traction on the high side, at that point, we'll start looking for mean reversion type trades. All right. So that covers the most bullish argument. We covered the most bearish argument. We covered the trap trade above the overnight high, as well as trap trade below support at 71.35. We also covered the dreaded sideways move. All right. So let's take a look here. Looks like we're headed for a gap fill. A true gap fill would be 71.68. Let's see if price finds some support here. We have the volume. We have VWAP right here at, let me just see exactly what price is. I'm not sure why that marker's not on. At 71.80, 75. We made a low of 71.75 quarter. All right. So let's just be mindful of that. Let's let this initial this open happen. And because we don't know if this is a really bearish move down yet. This could just be a reset or a liquidation of the overnight inventory, which we discussed earlier. All right. So let's dig into it. That covers what we should be looking for today. Let's make sure that we have these numbers on our radar. So settlement is 71.68. Yesterday's value area high 71.66. Any test down there, we want to gauge the price action and see if there is going to be support. Typically, what we're going to see at the settlement, if price reaches the settlement, you can almost set your clock by it. There's going to be at least a 1 or 2 point bounce. And then gauging what happens after that bounce is really where the rubber meets the road. Yep, we just took below, so look out. Look out below. Of course, we want to make sure that we have the opening print marked on our charts, right? We discuss that every morning. The opening print gives us a good idea for how the day is going to develop. And if you guys have been tuning in, you'll know that we talk about this every morning. I know Bo is pretty big on gauging what the day will develop like. If we're below the open print, you kind of start thinking where the daily candle would form as a red print. So if we're below it, and if we're above it, you want to generally look for long ideas with the idea that we're going to form a green or bullish candle on the daily print. Okay. So right now, what's interesting to note here is that we opened at 7,200, could only manage to go higher by 3 ticks, guys, 3. So made the high at 7,200, 7,275, and immediately, we've sold off, what, close to 30 points. It's a great scalp if you can catch it. Great scalp. All right, remember, keep your eye on 7168, 7166. We have a support band from 7168 down to 7158. And one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to start, fading this, thinking that it's, it's a failed breakout this early, because we're still just testing it, filling the gap from yesterday. And while this was a good scalp from the high, we want to be mindful that we're right now. We're just testing settlement, testing value area high, yesterday's value area. And so this would be a terrible place to initiate a short. Now, of course, right? What's price going to do? It's going to make it. It's going to cut right through it like a hot knife through butter. Just because I said that. Typically, the way it works, right? All right, so we made a low at 71.66, 75. 71.66.75. So let's keep our eyes on that. Let's take a look at our internals. So our internals are 1.4 to 1 positive on the NYSE, 1.6 to 1 negative on the NASDAQ. Interestingly enough, the Russell, the small cap index, is not participating in this liquidation break. It is still testing its highs right now. So we have some divergence. NASDAQ looks a lot like the ES, but we have a divergence. And we know from what we've highlighted in previous streams is that we want to keep an eye on the Russell because it's kind of been leading the way in a lot of these moves. So let me know if you have any questions. Drop a comment. Let me make sure that all of my stuff is set up properly here. Small long trade right here. Why not? We tested settlement and we tested that support band, and we are bouncing, right? So it kind of makes sense that we look for long ideas right now. We also know from the execution clock that we're looking for a high this morning, right? So I love that when this sets up this way, right? Price comes down, test a key support area, a daytime frame support. You can see we just bounced off that level, the settlement, as I discussed earlier, and we're moving higher now again. So straightforward there, guys. I hope you highlighted that area on your charts. We tested value area high, just about value area high of 71.66, and the settlement 71.68. I've got 5 points in this, so I'm going to take some off right now. I had a really nice chunky trade overnight. Started early, started drafting the plan, and it set up nicely. And it was almost like it was one of those tough setups to execute because so I remember I was getting long 71, like 75 or 77, and it looked so bad on the chart. I was like, oh God, you know what? I'm just gonna pull the trigger, leave the stop, and just walk out of the room. And that's what I did, and that those trades, sometimes when you follow your process, stick to your setups and take them despite what you're thinking or feeling at the moment, it really benefits you, right? Follow your system. Oh yeah, this is really nice. This is working out really nicely. I was gonna scale it, and it's just exploding. So let's just hold on to it for a little bit longer. I'm gonna take some off at 10. Let's just see. Okay. All right. Make sure I got this done right. If you guys have any questions about if any of the levels that I'm posting or that I'm talking about, or any type of trade idea, if you have any specific questions, please comment. Let me know. We're trying to add value to everybody that's watching. And ideally, guys, it would mean so much to me if you guys were making money, right? Like that's the whole point of this. And so I'm here to help. Let me know how I can. If I'm not getting something right, shoot the idea out. Feedback is crucial. Okay. So this should be 604. 604. All right. I'm taking some off here, plus 13 points. Hope you guys can see that there. You guys understand why that trade made sense and why I took it, right? Let me know if you saw it. Let me know what you guys think. So I let it bounce off 71, 66, 68, and then I immediately, I just hit it long. One of the things that I'm trying to get better at is being able to execute my plan and my ideas while I'm live on the stream. So we got the 10-point scale there, but look where we went to, right? We just back tested that 21 period moving average, and now we're going right back into the tail. That's not a good sign. Let's see how this materializes. Moving stop to break even, not adding to it. Let's see what happens here. Hard stop 71.71. I'm not going to overstay my welcome. Bit of a liquidation break here off the open. Stay alert. All right. So look, heads up, right? So we got the bounce off the settlement and value area high, 71.66, 71.68, which we outlined earlier, right? Now, if we go back through there with strength and momentum, that's going to be a big tell, right? That means that the liquidation break is not over. And then we're going to see, can we find some acceptance back in yesterday's value area? So yesterday's value area is 71.45 to 71.68. That's where 60% of yesterday, well, that's where the most volume transacted. Not the specific price, but more the value area range. All right. And so if we break back below value area high and the settlement, 71.66, 71.68, and we get below there and price shows acceptance below 71.66, acceptance back in yesterday's value area, that will be a big tell. All right, so we tested into that wick, to that 15-minute wick, and we found support. Now we're moving higher. So remember, guys, and the reason why I'm pointing out the value area, right? So if we get yesterday's value area, right, where most of yesterday's volume transacted. So remember, right? Value area is where, depending on your settings, 65 to 70% of yesterday's volume during the regular trading hour session, that's where the market kind of was in balance and found acceptance. So yesterday's value area range was 7160 on the low side was 7145. That's value area low. Value area high was 7166. Okay, so that's where roughly 65 to 70% of yesterday's volume transacted. Okay, so when if price gets below 7166 and demonstrates acceptance, meaning that we get several closes there, and let's just earmark it with two 15-minute closes back within value, then typically what you're going to see is that price will traverse the value area. So when price trades back into value, it's considered acceptance, right? If it doesn't get rejected from value. And once it's accepted back inside of the value area, there's a high probability that the market will traverse or trade to the opposite end of value. Let me know if that makes sense, guys. You can see here we're trading right back into it, right back into that 15-minute wick, guys. So yeah, so that was clearly a bounce off the settlement that's failing. Okay, we're moving right back down. All right. I just got stopped out at 71.71. I had a hard stop there. All right, so let's see what happens on the second test of settlement. So that's a big tell, guys. So we tested the settlement at 71.66, made a low of 71.66.75, traded as high as 71.85, and then rejected. Okay, so now we're testing settlement for the second time. And remember, the way we ID, you'll hear commonly you'll hear people talk about acceptance, right? So acceptance is it's kind of it's a subjective thing. Different people view it different ways, but generally the way you can spot acceptance is time and volume, right? So do we spend a lot of time within a certain price range? And is there a lot of volume traded in that price range? That's going to be a more rotational type look. And at that point, we would see that, yeah, this is demonstrating acceptance. And value tends to act like a magnet. If price gets back into value, it'll probably hang out there for a bit. It's when we break out of value that the market is more in price discovery mode. So Stuart asked in our Pitbull Traders chat, where do we get those numbers? What place gives us prior day value area? All right, great questions, Stu. So the value areas come from market profile parlance, and in order to get those numbers, you have to have a market profile software or something that can it comes from software. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it. So I have a an add-on on NinjaTrader that gives me a TPO, time price opportunity. Let me see if I can find a link for you so you can learn more about that. I know I have one here. Stu, what platform are you trading on? Yes. Yep. Yes. Here is so you're using Thinkorswim. So I don't know if I'm using Thinkorswim also, obviously, but I don't think so. I know that I'm pretty sure there is a way to find it. Um, I don't. It's not Thinkorswim is not the best platform for like market profile stuff, but I know that they do have a study in here. Hang on, let me see if I can find it for you. I think so. They usually have like a volume profile. Hang on. I think it's hang on. Hang out. Hang tight. Let's see. No. Any of you guys on Thinkorswim, if you know this specific study, I forgot what they call it. Oh yeah, monkey bars. That's what it is. Thanks, Tom. Yep. Okay. Style and chart mode. I knew it was something funky that they named it. Let's see. It's not in here either. It's weird. Gosh, where is that? Oh, here it is. Got it. All right. So monkey bars, TPO profile or volume profile, right? So hang on, let me see here. Okay, guys, we just tested yesterday's volume point of control at 71.59.50. Let me see if I can load it on this chart because I don't want to screw around too much with my 15-minute. Add study profiles. Let's see, TPO profiles. They have TPOs now. Okay, so this is more of a volume profile here, right? So this is kind of all right. So just really loosely, so see here, this is where this is a volume profile. So this would be like the most volume traded here, right here, right here, high volume, low volume here. And then this orange line, I'm assuming, is value area high, value area low. So this is where 70% of the day's volume transacted. And this red bar would be the highest price where volume transacted. But you'd have to go check the settings. I think this is set to like 24-hour chart or set to uh, draw a profile for whatever the chart is looking at. So I'm not too clear on that, but if you right click, go to studies and go to profiles, you can start there. All right, guys. So we tested as low as 71.60 quarter, and now we're retracing. Tricky read here. You know what? Hey, guys, stay alert, right? We might be in for a consolidation. We might get that sideways move I discussed earlier, right? So we bounced off of settlement. That that those buyers failed to gain any traction to the upside, came back down, liquidated them, tested as high as volume point of control at 71.59.50, bounced again, and now we're back into that first 15-minute range. So heads up, right? Let's be cautious here. We don't want to get chopped up if price is not going anywhere. And if price is breaking out, we'll know it when we see it. Again, one of the most important things we could do is to remember, let's not try to predict what's going to happen. Let's stay in alignment and let's react instead of predicting. Moving back down here again. So heads up, that low at 71.60 quarter, that's going to break. It's not going to hold. I think we're going to revisit that. Yep. Thanks for that, Tom. Appreciate it. I forgot about Smash Lido. Yeah, he's a really he's a decent market profile um trader and analyst. There's another guy too on X. I like that guy. Starts with a V. I forgot what his name is, but he's pretty good at it too. All right. So again, so outlining what we said earlier, right? We're we're coming into the 10 o'clock hour liquidation break from the open. There's been nothing but selling, right? And we're trading 26 points away from the opening print. The one thing that we have to be mindful of is let's make sure, let's try to assert if this is going to be just an inside choppy range day. That's always, that's pretty important for me because I'm a directional trader. I look for directional moves. And when we go sideways, right, you can take very many stops and it's more frustrating than anything else, right? So Adrian asked, "What were the numbers for the value area again?" Sorry, no worries, Adrian. Happy to help. So value area high for today is 71.66. 71.66. Value area low is 71.45. 71.45. Value area high 71.66. Value area low 71.45. Again, that's where 70% of yesterday's volume transacted. So currently, we're testing value area high. And what we're looking for is to see, are we going to get back into value, which would be the first sign that, hey, we're going to have we're more, the probabilities are higher that we're going to have a balanced day. Or maybe even traverse the entire value area and test value area low at 71.45. But I'm just looking at different things here, and the Nasdaq is pretty offered here. It's pretty bearish. But I mean, the VIX is down 4.5%. VIX is down 4.5%. Russell's on highs. Odd. This is an odd read here. Let's see what's going on with oil. Oil's down 1%, testing that 105 area again. Yeah, I just think this is probably a gap fill when we're looking for a low. Let's see if we can gain any traction. See if we find some acceptance below the value area. Thus far, we've only gotten one close in there. At the 9:45 candle, closed at 71.65. So, I mean, yeah, it's closed at 71.65 at 71.65 quarters. So 3 ticks below value area high. 71.66. Value area high 71.66. All right, we just ticked the volume point of control. All right. All right, we're gauging right here to see if price finds acceptance or gets rejected from value area. It's already been rejected once, and now this is the second test, right? So we do know that with every test of an area, it gets weaker and weaker and weaker. Let's see what happens here. We tested as low as the volume point of control at 71.59. Small long here at 63 quarter with my, it's just tiny risk. Let's see if we gain any traction. Using that low as my risk marker. And let me just see the ticks. Should have checked those first. Let's check the delta. So we did have some divergence down there, so that looks good. Pam Bond, Billy points out, notable reversal in oil off the 110 plus move overnight 105 now. Pam Bond, the high is still in on the Dow. That's pretty funny. Oh, Billy's great. I think I'm a short below 71.40 on confirmation. 71.40. Oh, yeah, if we get down there, if we get down there, I'll probably be looking for the trap under yesterday's low, but I think we're going to get rejected from value here. That's why I took the long at 63 quarter. Looking for, scalp trade. So looking for, as always, 5 points on my first, 10 points on my second, and then see if I can catch a Forrest Gump runner. Narrow miss there. I got to keep one eye on these. All right, cool. So I got the 60 guys. I was looking at my phone. I just got pinged. So I got the first +5 at 68 quarter. Looking for 73 quarter on the second. Narrow miss there on the first attempt. Let's see what we get. Yeah, that would. So Billy points out that would be a bearish engulfing pattern. Yeah, and you know what? It's a tough read, right? Because with those earnings that we got yesterday, I mean, Samsung blew it out, Eli Lilly blew it out, Amazon, Meta, Google. It's going to be. It would be interesting if we broke below there, and also a big tell. If we get below there and we trade down there, we strengthen the momentum for sure. So typically after my first target, when I get that, I typically take probably about, I don't know, 80% of the time I'm taking a 5-point first, 10-point second. My entire system is designed around a first scale at 5 points, a second scale at 10, and the third contract hitting 15 points. At that point, I only need to have a 33% win rate in order for the system to be profitable. So I did that math, and then I designed my setups behind being able to achieve at least a 5-point first and a 10-point second. 15 is pretty hard on the third, but not uncommon. But if I only get the first two scales, then my win rate has to jump to 66, 67% in order for the system to be profitable. So with that said, after I hit the first 5-point target, I typically will tighten up my stop by 2 points. So I'll bring it back from entry. I'll bring it 3 points from 3 points below my entry. And if we come down and test it really quickly, I'm probably taking a break even like I just did. And the OCOs take care of that for me. I don't really need to handle much of that myself. But yeah, we're getting this is pretty interesting, right? Clearly rejected. And we're getting that second scenario we outlined in the open, right? For we got the bounce off of the settlement area. And now we're seeing a liquidation break lower. So now we're back in value, right? We're back below. We're starting to demonstrate some acceptance back within the value area. So below 71.66. And although we haven't gotten a 15-minute close in here yet, it's let's see, this bar just opened 2 minutes ago, so we could easily, I'm more apt to think that we're gonna go sideways here for a bit. So be careful down here. There you go, another bounce. Let's see if that one gets sold into as well. Tough read. Like the VIX is down, Russell's on highs, Nasdaq's already taken out its overnight low. I think it has eyes set on yesterday's low, and the ES is testing a value area, and we're wicking again. We're wicking again in the value area. So clearly there's a battle going on here. You can see here, look at all these wicks, right? Wick, wick, wick. It's 4 wicks on a 15-minute time frame. That's an hour of buyers showing up and sellers trying to press. See what we get. Let's see if we can learn anything from the ticks. Yeah, the ticks are slightly positive. Let's look at the weighted AD. See what the read there is. Yeah, the weighted AD is positive. Not strong positive, but somewhat positive. See what's going on with oil. Oil's at 105. It pulled off hard off that 110 level. Man, that's a beautiful trade if you guys caught it, right? TLB points out, sell tech, buy underweights. I like that read. Shit, I should have bought those. God, I should have bought those 63 quarters again. Yeah, I'm not gonna. We're not gonna sit here and do the coulda, woulda, shoulda game, right? Torture myself with that. Okay. I have the algos off right now. I don't like this read. I want to see if we can get more of a directional bias here. And we're coming into that AM high window. All right, let's see what we get. This is scalper's paradise. I wish I was better at scalping. It just seems like it'll be way more, way more gratifying. Like getting in, getting out, getting racking up wins. I guess that works both ways, though, right? All right, hang tight, guys. Quick bathroom break. Where are we at? All right. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I'm back. Okay. All right. Let's see where we are. Again, testing VWAP, volume weighted average price for the day is 71.76. Thus far, it's starting to act as resistance. Let's see what we get here. We also know that we're looking for a high or a high pivot in between 10:15 and 10:45. And guys, price is important, but time is your butt. Time is really important when you're trading, right? How many times have we been in a trade and you nail the level, but somehow you lost money on the trade because you were too early or you missed one because you're too late, right? And there's a tool for that because price follows a pattern, and there's an excellent tool for that. Few people know about it, but the ones that do swear by it. And what it's called is the execution clock. I put it out on my X feed pretty much not every day, but I have been putting it out this week. You can find that at Manny_trends on X, and it's there posted today. Do me a favor, if you grab it, I just want to see who grabs it. Drop a like and follow if you want to use it every day. I know the guys in the IM Pro, use it pretty much every day, and the guys who do use it swear by it. But that gives you a really good idea of when you should execute your trade, right? So while we're bouncing off a volume point of control value area high and this trading just above the settlement right now, I understand that my time study, although not perfect, right? Nothing trading is. It's telling me that we're going to put in a high pivot somewhere between 10:15, 10:45, and there's a center time or a mean price of 10:30. Right. So I don't want to initiate, even though we're reclaiming the settlement, I don't want to initiate here. Why? Because the trade might work, but it might be a lower probability trade. Right. So I'd rather wait for the next turn. So let's just walk through this. I'll do a quick workshop on how I would use it. Right. So looking for let's just mark this out. Looking for a high pivot, right? Somewhere in here. And that high pivot is going to come somewhere between 10:15 and 10:45, right? So that's just a rough box of that's the start of that rectangle is 10:15. The back end of that rectangle is 10:45, right? So that's the window. So I'm expecting a high pivot there. I don't want to initiate a long trade, even though we're reclaiming the level, because I from my system, I'll be running into trouble. I also have these downward sloping moving averages that I'd have to contend with. So I'm not necessarily interested in a long trade anymore. I did take the earlier one, anticipating that high pivot and hoping to be long into it, right? But that was quite a while ago. All right. So now our next pivot following that time, right? And again, the execution clock's posted on my X feed. The next time pivot is going to be rough. It's going to be between 11 and 11:45 today. Every day has a different configuration. So you have to log in. You have to check on the feed every day for what day type it is. But then we're looking for a low pivot somewhere in between 11 and 11:45. All right. So let me just highlight this. Okay. And these are just, I'm not marking that this is going to be the high or anything. I'm just marking out the times outside of the range, right? So let me just activate this and move it down outside of the range. Okay. So this low, it could easily be a lower low or a higher low. We don't know yet. But what we are going to do is just mark the time. So I don't want to be long into a low pivot. What I know from years of watching and using the clock, I know that at 11 to 11:45, I'm going to get a low pivot, right? So I don't want to be long into this right now. I want to wait for that 11 o'clock time frame and then gauge, then apply the technical analysis to see where price is trading, whether that's a lower low or a higher low. Only time will tell. But if it's a lower low, then I'm looking for a long trade off of that pivot into that time frame. If it's a higher low, then great, right? Then I know that my supports are under me. I know I have those risk markers, and I have the clock on my favor, and I can take a long trade between 11 and 11:45 with a center time of 11:15 into the next pivot, which comes between 12 and 1 o'clock. All right. And I know I've been promising the guys in the pit and the guys in our orbit a workshop or a live stream based on the clock. And I do have all the days now. So there are several different configurations we can get. I believe there are 24 different day type configurations. That's why it took me a while to accrue all of them. But now that I have them, I'm preparing some materials. We're going to do a live stream on the nuances of trading the clock and applying that to your trading system. Okay, so look out for that. It's going to be a live stream event. We'll maybe tie it to a free giveaway. Typically, don't put the clock out for free, but I have been just to help folks out. But it's a ton of work to keep it configured and stuff. So. All right, still moving higher here. Let me remove these rectangles. You know, I'm going to leave them in there for now. And I'm also going to do this, right? Let's activate this and let's get the hope. The hope would be that we get, what would be, obviously things don't work out perfectly, right? But if we get a high, we get that maybe test these moving averages and then get rejected, right? So a first touch fade happens. And then if we get rejected and we put in a low, but stay above value area high, because we've already been rejected 3 times, stay above the settlement. We've already been rejected from there 3 times. And then if I can get a long trade on a pullback into the 1230 high, then I'm looking for a target of yesterday's high, 71.90. Okay. So that's my next trade idea. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we got the overnight liquidation break out of the way. The reset of the overnight inventory is out of the way. Now we're staying patient, staying disciplined, and waiting for the next trade idea, one that's in alignment with the dominant force of the day. Yeah, it's hard to think that this market's going to break. I don't know. That's just my thinking, though. I'm a bull. I'm typically, I often say, I'm bullish, but that's just for lack of articulation on my part, right? I'm just better at trading longs than I am short. So if that makes me a bull, whatever. All right, getting that pullback here. We tag those moving averages, right? Downward slope. I have to move this. So that's the time frame window, right? So we tagged the 9-period moving average. We're now back below volume weighted average price, 71.76. We tagged the downward sloping moving average and are getting our retracement, right? And I used to think that the best way to get a retracement was for me to buy, for me to get long, right? Because as soon as I get long, there would be a retracement. Now I'm a little bit better at sitting them out and waiting for them to happen. I guess the obvious question is, right, would I trade this? Why wouldn't I trade it short from a high pivot, right? I mean, I think that's probably it's a pretty safe question to ask. And the reason why is, this is going to be one of the nuances we cover in the live workshop. So you want to try to stay in alignment with the trend of the day, right? So that's what we're trying to do here all the time, right? Identify what are the dominant forces of the day, whether it's bulls, bears, or neither, and we're going sideways. So we have this liquidation break, but on our higher time frame, we know we're running into some supports right down here. So generally thinking, I want to be looking for long ideas. So I take that and I look at where we are relative to the day's structure. So we're above the settlement. We got rejected from value area 3 times. So now I want to take long ideas into high time frame windows. So I want to look for a long now from a low pivot, and that the next low pivot is scheduled from between 11 and 11:45. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a higher low relative to, our daily low at 71.57 quarter, or if it's going to be a lower low. But having a time tool gives me the it helps, it makes it easier for me to be patient and wait for the right trade. And I can't tell you how many times, I've traded against the clock and I've paid for it. So I don't want to, although this trade would have been great from the moving average, right? It's not for me over my experience. I prefer to take the long, right? And I, one of the things I'm not a super active trader. If I trade, 4 times in a day, 5 times in a day, that's a really busy day for me. And typically if I hit the first trade, if I catch it right, I'm done. Depending on which account, right? So now, before all this, all prop firms became so popular, I was just trading one account, and if I got the first trade, I would stop, and that was kind of like how I trained and how I developed. And I think that prop firms offer people, offer folks. I saw one guy, he had like, I don't know, like uh, at least 30 accounts on his screen. And I was like, geez, man, that's a lot of accounts. And God bless you if you're, I don't know if he was copy trading them or whatever, but my general thinking is that the more you trade, the lower probability of success you have. If you hit a good trade early in the day, you won the day, take it off, right? Um, and if you have a hard time doing that, then maybe that's something you need to look at, because the whole point of this is to make money, not to you know sit here and play a real life, real money video game. But let me just get off that, because that's a little. I feel like I'm preaching. Speaking of preaching, right? So, I was, a lot of you guys know that, this is just a quick random thought popped into my mind while we wait. You know, a lot of you guys know I'm a baseball coach. I, I, I played pretty decent baseball. Um, I never got paid to play. So I think that mattered. I think that's important to say. However, I did get a chance after I stopped playing. I went back and I coached my high school, and I coached them for about 5 years. And then, with the idea that the day I had a son, I wanted to coach him in baseball, and I've been blessed enough that fortunately I get to live out that dream now with him. And so, I was on the field the other day and I was coaching. We were running through practice and it hit me again, even at the youth level, right? I was explaining, so I was coaching this kid, and he looked annoyed by me reminding him of something. I was coaching him of, I wanted him to correct the behavior or a drill that we were doing. And it hit me. Even at the youth level, kids have coaches for everything. And I told them, you have teachers, your parents, your baseball coaches. If you play an instrument, you have an instrument coach. Everything for kids is always lined up, right? And it's constant. It's constant feedback and constant. It gives you a constant way to get better and improve, and that's great, because people love to help kids, right? And then you start, and then you, if you look at trading, right, grown adults trying to figure this out alone, watching YouTube videos, hoping it clicks. And that's I just think that that's a really, really tough way to learn this game. Every professional I've ever been around, sports, business, trading, whatever it be, they that were successful, they all had one thing in common. They had somebody like watching them, a mentor, a teacher, a coach, something, or someone that was holding them accountable. And not generic feedback, like, you can get generic feedback by listening to a YouTube video, but personal feedback, I mean, like one-on-one. Because here's the thing, right? Trade in trading, the hard part isn't the strategy, it's typically you. And so it's how you react, how you manage risk, how you handle a win, how you handle a loss. And that's the part you can't ever fix by reading a book, by watching a video, by listening to some guru, right? What do they know about your personal tailor-made challenges? Whether you're, revenge trading because, you're I don't know, you're late on your cell phone bill, or you're revenge trading because you hate to be wrong. Whatever the case might be, it's best if you have a personal coach that's helping you sort that stuff out. You can't fix most of what ails traders by having a how can I say it? You need a bi-directional, teacher student type of feedback mechanism that can help you address your certain challenges and helps you get better at them. And you need constant feedback for that. Anyway, I'll get off it now, but just to point out, like I didn't find my first mentor until like after like 4 or 5 years I was trading. And at that point it was pretty hard to, there was no YouTube wasn't as popular as what it is now. And it was when I found that first mentor that, I was so happy that someone was going to work with me, somebody that had a real world experience. And I've had three trading mentors, and I don't know that I would ever have been able to achieve or get to where I am without all three of them. It was all three of them. Like my first mentor, which was a woman, she taught me the importance of having a trade plan and the tertiary effects of sitting down and doing that work day in and day out. Most times it's not really just your trade plan. It's just the sitting down and, like massaging the charts, going through the charts, figuring out, all right, what's my plan? How am I going to conquer this? Like any military general is not going into battle without a plan. And yet folks think that they can show up in the morning, turn on their screen and beat the ES. The most competitive, probably the most competitive game in the world, high stakes, billions of dollars flying around. And they think, I'm just going to turn on my screen and look, when this line crosses that line, I buy. Yeah. Let's just be realistic, guys. You need to have a plan. So I'm actually working with someone right now, right? Good trader, super successful in what he does in life. So I'm building him up to develop the right mindset. So some of the things that we're doing, he doesn't understand. And I get it. And I told him, just stick to the process. He's probably listening right now. I'm only coaching 2 people for trading right now. And I think one of them is present. But anyhow, what I'm trying to do with him is build up the right mindset so that those mistakes that can develop over time, like the underlying emotional challenges and so forth, so that we don't develop those, so that he doesn't develop them. So what we're working on really has nothing to do with entries and with entries, right? I typically tell them, hey, you can have whatever strategy. If you want me to give you a strategy, fine, I can do that. If you want to trade my strategy, I can do that. Or if you have your own strategy, let's go. Because it's about executing a strategy, not what strategy. Like exits matter more than entries. Management matters more. And we have to work on those things. And honestly, managing your emotions after wins and losses is probably the most difficult component of it all. That's where, you find, that's where the bodies are buried. And that stuff is hard to see on your own. Gosh, I wish, somebody would have alerted me to it earlier. You can't see your own blind spots. You can't see your own mistakes in real time. And that's the biggest issue. When someone knows they have to report back to you, behavior changes really fast. And the way I structure my coaching, right, is they only pay me if they break a rule. So they are super incentivized to follow, whatever program we're developing for them. And, and then a coach has to be really good at seeing your patterns, not just market patterns, but behavioral patterns. I mean, you could spend 2 or 3 years trying to figure something out, and a coach can point that out for you in 2 weeks. And what I find is most traders don't need a better strategy. They need to understand the underlying components. They need better control. And nothing will shorten that learning curve like success. All right. Thrusty move here. Let's watch that notch at 71.85.75. 71.85.75. So now that we're looking for that low pivot, we're going to enter that window in about 10 minutes. I'm looking at 71.75 with my backup again, 71.65. See if we can get it. Let's let this bar close out. See where the 11 o'clock bar forms. But yeah, don't get. I wouldn't short it into that move, right? Let's let it materialize. This thing's way too strong right now. 71. Oh, we're right through that notch. Look at that. Yeah, this thing is so bull right now. Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to tell though, right? Like all these earnings and stuff. Do me a favor, if you guys are watching on YouTube, goes a long way if you could just hit that like button. We're trying to build out our social media platform, and also we're trying to add value every day. We're certainly getting our feet underneath us. Every day is a learning experience, and we're going to improve on a daily basis. Your suggestions, your comments really go a long way. So one of the tools that I use with my clients is, let's see if I can bring up the screen share, or with the guys I'm coaching. Waiting for that pullback. Waiting for a pullback in. So it's gonna be about 20 minutes before I start looking at that. So I have some time here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, is that it? Oh yeah, here it is. So one of the tools that I use, right, is, so this is just where we set it up. So let's say oh 04, you know, it starts on, we have to start on a Monday. So we always put in a Monday date. We put in, your name. Here's Manny. Your whatever your round trip commissions is, and whatever your starting account would be. So typically, like, it's like a 50,000, you know, evaluation account. So you plug that in there, and then here are the rules for just filling this page out. But then the program is, I think in order to find success, we have to commit to a certain time frame, right? So it's built out at 12 weeks. And then here is where we track all of the trades, right? So trade entry, trade exit, trade direction. And there's a little drop down in here. You can go short or long. So we thought you would enter 11 o'clock. Trade exit time. Say, I don't know. Hopefully this one was a good one. So it lasted to 11:59. All right. Your price, what are we trading? 71.91. Your exit price, let's just call it, well, let's move back here. Let's go 71.81, 71.91. And then oh, so wait, it's a long trade, right? And then it'll calculate your profit and give you an idea for how many points you made. This is very important. If you have to check whether you did your homework or not. So hopefully I see that as yes. But if you didn't, it's okay. Just make sure you mark it so we can track where the behavior is going. Then at the bottom, we frame it out. Look, we're not going to make this very difficult. It's just 3 rules. Did you follow rule number 1 is the most important thing, which is, did you do your homework? Then you have different trade names. So these are just the setups that I use. You can fill those out yourself. Then your entry type, was it aggressive, conservative, or was it in the middle? Did you just click buy because FOMO set in? What was your line in the sand? So, your critical line, your daily open, halfway back, so forth, overnight high, overnight low. Was your line in the sand broken? Did you take your minimum? So the last time I built this out, we were working on 3-point first target. Did you take 3 points? What was the outcome of the trade? Profit or loss? Primary reason for the outcome, follow the rules, and then any comments. And then after about 4 weeks, we review this and I start to find patterns in it. But anyway. Wow, super, super strong breakout here. God dang it. You know, of course, hey, I'm human, right? I had those 63.25s and I didn't buy them the second time because I thought we were going to put in a high pivot, but obviously we're now in the tail end of that window, pretty much surpassed it. Um, and I think that looking back on it, you know, again, this is why I say don't take the pivot that's in line with the day's trend, right? Because this is common occurrence, right? So what we could extrapolate from that is that look on a 5-minute chart, that was our 1030 high, came in right at 1030. We sold off, held support, and rallied, right? So now we're looking for a pullback, and hopefully we get it, 71.75, 71.81. Any pullbacks into those areas that are in this time frame are where I want to try to initiate a long trade. 11:15, 11:45. Boom. And hang tight because watch, you'll see it. It will happen. Let me just share this one. Right. So every day I track the clock to go over it. So this was yesterday's day. You can see we had a low pivot. All these went out beforehand. Low, high, low. These are all the time frame windows. Here was our high pivot, right? If you were shorting into this one on an uptrend, you got smoked. This was our low pivot. I had the box in here, but obviously you can tell that it was a higher low. So it would look like that. And I'll go over this stuff, like these little nuances of higher low, lower lows. You see this one, this high came in early. But all of these other ones were on time. So look out for that. It's coming at you soon. I just did a video on it, an explainer video to help people out, kind of lead us into it. Man, this move is smoking. Yep. So look out for that, Bueller. It's coming. God dang it, man. I had those 63.25s. I'm kicking myself right now. Yeah, whatever. I mean, what am I going to do? I'll get something. Something will materialize. It always does. Man, this has just been a runaway move, though. You know what kind of annoys me, though, right? I mean, let's face it, right? Was that I had 63.25, right? I got the 5-point scale. I missed the second scale. Oh, so it must have been in here. Because I know I missed the second one. I mean, whatever. I'm not going to fall into that mindset. Makes for a long day. Even though I'm probably already in it. Jesus Christ! Look at the Russell up 1.5%. This thing's gonna skyrocket. This thing's gonna go boom, 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 shakalaka. Hey, Billy, I'm glad you didn't sell it down there, bud. You've gotten clapped. So this is just pressure cooking right now. Yeah, good job. Wait for your spot, right? Yeah, because and we talked about this in the pre-market, right? Let's monitor these support areas for a rejection or acceptance below the value area, and we got exactly that. I traded the first one. I didn't want to trade the second one. Obviously, now in hindsight, I feel like not very smart about it, but whatever. It had just been a 30-point trade, not a big deal. Ugh. Not a big deal. 30 points. What's 30 points? Yeah, so I kind of thought, look, with overnight inventory liquidation break. If in order for it, yeah, that break was heavy, right? So we opened 7,200, we only two ticked higher and then sold off. So obviously somebody pulled all their bids, right, and just got liquidated all these guys. So we kind of knew that we expected that something like that could happen. Excuse me, something like that could happen. But in order for anything to change, we had to find some acceptance back below value area high. And look, you can see right here on the chart, right? What do we see? How many times did we wick down there? We counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wicks on a 15-minute chart. So what's that tell you? Buyers were just waiting down there. And then they didn't start hitting. So they were probably sitting on bid, right? When they got down there, just and sellers were trying to sell it, pushing it lower, and they were like, "All right, sell to me. I buy more, right?" And then they didn't start really hitting them until like in the last hour. All right, like, all right, now we got these guys up against the fence. Let's go get the stops on the upside. And then they started going market bid, and people got smoked, clapped. All right, so let's see. Right now, I'm looking for that 75, looking for a pullback. Hopefully, sooner than later. 71.76, 71.75. We got VWAP right there. We also have a moving average of 71.84. That might help us. We'll see. But yeah, here we go. We're back above yesterday's highs. And obviously the 96% stat comes into play now, right? So that's going to be a nice frothy trade if I can get it. If we come down to 71.75, I'm buying 10 and I'm holding them to 72.10. Let's go. If you says if I had a nickel for every trade I missed, right? You wouldn't need to trade. You wouldn't need to trade. Thanks for the comments, Billy and Bueller. Thanks for keeping me company. Sometimes I feel like I'm alone, just talking to myself. The folks on YouTube there were some. Oh yeah, there's some folks watching. Thanks, FaZe. Appreciate the support, buddy. Appreciate it. You have any questions? Oh, whoa! I just lost my screen share. Hang tight. What the hell happened? All right, I got one back. Did I just? Oh my god, I suck. Ugh. Dude, there are some days that I'm trading. I feel like I can do no wrong. Right? I'm just locked in, so focused. I'm like one with price movement, and then there are other days where I can't get it right. Like I can't see the side of a barn. And yesterday, I was chatting with a couple of trader buddies from the Pitbull team yesterday, and I was telling them about the shit day I had. Right, I just completely garbage day. And so it's always encouraging to talk to other traders, right? Because they were like, yeah, it happens. Because when you're in that moment, you probably think you're the only one. Large Void says LOD corresponds with yesterday's volume point of control, yesterday's settlement, VWAP and SPY. Yeah, good observation there, Large Void. Yep, we kind of highlighted that here. That's the red dotted line on the chart. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. If you guys can't see the levels, let me know. I can increase the font and change the color. It's important that you guys can see those. I don't think that this red is really visible. Maybe I'll change it to orange. Yeah, so yesterday's volume point of control was 71.59.50, right? And we went we two ticked it, right? Went down a couple points and then blasted off. So I hope some of you guys caught this move. My day would have been set had I had those 63 quarters, man. I'd have been in a Forrest Gump runner right now. Things would have been looking sweet. I would have been able to send my wife to Target. Oh, look at the VIX, dude. The VIX is dying. That was the tell this morning, guys. Hey, Billy, if you're listening, dude, that was the tell, bro. That was the tell, right? Because we were selling. I said it. I was like, the VIX is down. That doesn't make any sense. Russell was on the highs. So remember that look for next time. Certainly, with a strong divergence there in volatility versus what the indexes were doing. Yep. Yep. And it's bleeding out, guys. So yeah, hang tight, wait for a pullback. We're gonna be good. We're gonna be golden. There's one thing assured though, right? Like, so after you miss a trade, and this is something I always tell myself is there's going to be another setup. I mean, and it always materializes. Sometimes you fall into that, FOMO state of mind, and you're like, oh, I missed it. I had it nailed, but I missed it, or I talked myself out of it. Um, but it will materialize. Billy says I trade VIX products, so now interest. I'm now interested in buying the dump off involved. So you know what? That's interesting, right? That's an interesting take because it's when it's not bid that you want to get long vol. And also, here's another thing, Billy. I don't know how much you follow Vega. I follow it very closely, and no, we're at 17. That's on the index, not the futures. Which one are you asking about? Spot VIX is 1737. But here, heads up, right? So I know you trade options, right? So the if you've noticed over the last 4 or 5 days, there's been, Vega is starting to price in volatility. And that's, the divergence in that because we're positive gamma, but Vega's bid and Vega's already starting to price in a rampant volatility. And before the Fed, I thought it was it's just the Fed. It's just the Fed. And I'm neophyte at reading these things. I'm learning every day. But what I realized was I saw this look before. Vega went bid when the markets were quiet, and then like 2 weeks later, all hell broke loose. So I don't know if that was programs or algos or just smarter thinking that was getting prepared, but those guys were ahead of it, and I'm starting to see the same looks now. Let me see. You like it at 15? Let's take a look at the. Let me take a look at the put to call ratio. So here's the put to call with a an SPX chart. Hard to time it though. Yeah, not an easy read there. Well, shit, they're not gonna give me my pullback. Of course, right? Perfect. As soon as I go off stream, they'll give it to me. Right? That's typically the way it works. Let's see. We're gonna get one. Let me try to hang out, see if I can get that trade. Billy says spot VIX. Yes, I'm going to take some risk if we get down there. Yeah, I think it makes sense, right? Let me just see. Let me just look at something else here. Hang tight. Hang tight. Let's see. Because we all know how they like to trick, right? So let me see something. Let me see if it makes sense before I start talking about it. Yeah, dude, look at this. Wow. For sure. Are we gonna get the pullback? God dang it. Of course not. Let's see. 6 months. Let me share this chart. This is exactly the same look I was seeing Billy before prior. Hang on, let me share this chart. Let's see. Okay. So look, check it out. Right? The green line is SPX. Thanks, Bueller. Oh God. Hey. Hey, we love you, but what time are you going off? You know what? I don't blame you guys, man. After dumping those 63-23s, man, I deserve to be put in the penalty box. But hey, Billy, check it out, right? So the green line is SPX, the blue line is the dark pool index. And you can see it right here, right? When the dark pool index starts spiking before the move, you're typically going to see the SPX follow. And right now we're divergent, right? So SPX is rallying, dark pool is declining. That's profit taking, clandestine profit taking. So hang on, Bueller. Let me check the schedule. There's a really smart guy around here who keeps the schedule for our speakers. I'm not that smart. Good talker though. Let's see. Come on, pull me back, baby. Let's go. Oh, that was pause. That was really bad. I just said, "Come on, baby, pull me back." That is not for the children. That is not rated G. So I hope you got a chance to look at that. We get to 7,400, that VIX likely below 15, and it will be time to counter, I think. Yeah, Billy. So I'm not sure if you saw I've been going over or read the opening print where I made the case for 7,450. That's where I think we're going. I think that that's where ultimately where the market is headed on this move. And it wouldn't surprise me if we overshoot that move to as high as like 76, 76.50. That's typically what you're going to see in when wave fives end. But if you need, if you haven't if you haven't read that, yeah, let me know. I can show it to you, but I won't go into it now. It's kind of dry and boring. Not that what I'm doing here is pretty entertaining anyway, but 11:23, and I didn't get the pullback. For you guys that are hanging out, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. Thanks for keeping me company today. Yeah, yep. So Billy says when we were below the 200 day at below 6,400, he posted an Elliott wave that had us targeting up sharply. Unreal. Yeah, so that's and I think I opened it with I'm probably going to get a lot of smoke for this. I'm probably going to get a lot of a lot of flack, but I that's why I posted it because it was totally contrary to what everybody was looking at, and I knew that so also Billy like it was evident there also in the book like you saw that I noticed that there was divergence every day between gammas and deltas. Vega was um they started suppressing the volatility again, and it was totally contrary to what we had seen before that. And I thought, you know what, I've had this level mapped out, for I don't know, maybe over a year for sure. This is the target right up. Hang on. I posted the charts in that article if you guys want to check it out. But um yeah, here's the target 74.50, wave five. It'll be a 5 of 5 and a completed measure move. Right. So maybe we overshoot it, but it'd be interesting to see when we get there. And look at this consolidation, this daily consolidation. How long is it going to be before we put in like a boom explosive candle higher? It's coming. It's coming. And so you know what? Here's another thing. Let me check the hang on a second. Let me check the seasonality chart. Because that whole sell in May and go away thing, right? Uh Hang on, where is it? But this is what I love to do, right? Like hammer out these ideas, figure out fors and against, and create like a thesis that's based on evidence and logic, right? And then it's not that really hard to figure out. What you got the challenge is not getting confused in the noise. Yeah, so where are we now? We're at April 30th. So here, let me share this chart. Drop that other share. I think it's this one. That dropped them both. Watch, I'll show you. Hang on, hang tight. Let me get this one up first. And then this one. So look, this is equity clock for seasonality, and you'd be surprised how often this thing is accurate. So on that dip, mid-March, right? This is around the time that I penned the 6,400 article. Right here into that low. Let me just get a better marker here. into that low, right? And now look at what we've done. And now we're coming into May. So it's always the back half of May that you get that pullback. So what I'm thinking is, what I'm trying to figure out, and only time will tell, right? Is this, hang on, let me erase this. And let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all. Is that too big? That looks like it's too big. There we go. All right. So the thinking here is, we had the March low pullback. We're seeing this happen right now. End of April. Now here we go. Right. So we typically get a little sideways to up action before the back half of May coming down. So the question that I'm trying to figure out is this 74.50 or is this? I think the back half of 2026 is going to be interesting. I don't think this is going to be 2026, the back half. Now remember, this is just seasonality. It doesn't account for bull market pullbacks. Yeah, Billy said, thinking we top late May, then get a scare for June trading. I think the blip in May. I don't think this is going to be 7,400. I think 7,400 comes here, or maybe even into through the summer, like where it's right over here. But after August, September, I think we're going to see, instead of what you're seeing here, I think it's going to look more like high or a high. And then, oh, no, wait, this is August here. So I think we're going to go from here, maybe something like this. It's a 5 of 5, a this move started at the COVID low, and it's a 5 of 5 on Elliott wave. I mean, I've had that count on my charts for 5 years, for three, since 2021. No, since 2023. Are we gonna get a pullback? It doesn't look like we're gonna get it, guys. I'm gonna go use the bathroom. Hang tight. High of 72.03. This thing is going to the moon. It's the Artemis. I'm calling this the Artemis move. Who's looking for a pullback? You want to see how I bet I can guarantee you I can generate a pullback at any moment. I am 100% confident in that. Thanks, Billy. If anybody's waiting for a pullback or needs one right now, just tell me. There we go. Here's our pullback. This is the type of day and the type of move that I bet you there's like a ton of divergences on oscillators. I knew there would be a pullback. All I had to do was get long. Jeff Z says, looks like it was a liquidity sweep at the lows and at the highs. Well, that's I thought they did. I thought that was on display yesterday during the earnings volatility. Like there just was no like if you were watching, if you were around for the earnings, right? There were great earnings, and so we spiked to 71.90 and then dumped to 71.30. Like what was that? Somebody wasn't long enough. So what they do in those environments is, right, they're not selling it, but what they're doing is pulling they're stacking the ladder, stacking the book. What they do there is then they just say, you know what, I'm not going to be absorbing bids on dips. I'm just going to pull all my bids out of the book. And all of a sudden, you see a couple. You'll see the tape move lower on a few contracts. Like what I mean by a few, like 20, 10 to 20 contracts hitting levels, and it just pushing the market around. Where typically it takes like 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 to and sustained through points for a move to gain speed and gain ground. But then you see those dips, right? And I love those dips when there's a divergence and you see that the market is dipping on like you know inconsequential volume. You have to watch the volume for a long time to understand it, right? There's no black and white. It's not a linear thing. Um, like right now, we're trading in the comfortably between the 20s and the hundreds, right? Every level is on the upside. They're going 30, 40, 50, and that's how they're moving it. So you get to you get to recognize these patterns after a while. But if all of a sudden throughout the day, it's been taking 30 39 contracts, 50, 70 contracts, 200 contracts to move a level, and then all of a sudden it's moving on 15, 9, 10. You're like, why are we dipping like this? Why is the liquidity so thin? We ramp right afterwards, right? There's The only thing that matters there is waiting for that to end and knowing that that is not a real move. That if you get short into that move, you're probably going to end up paying for it, or scalp it. But typically, what you want to do is let that transpire, and then wait for the volume to show up and trade in that direction. All right, back testing yesterday's high here, and we're right into the window. Good job. I grabbed some 92s. All right, guys, I'm running over my time here, about 13 minutes over, but I wanted to be able to execute something in front of y'all, and hopefully this is it. I have 92s right now. Looking for 97s on the first scale. Let me see if that makes sense here. Uh, Dang, this is looking like, yeah, I'm not liking this because it looks like we're going to pull back deeper. Let's see. What was the low here? 71.91. And then we just made a low of what? 70, 90, 75. All right. So I'm going to keep this really tight, right? Because look at what we have here, right? We're possibly in, so even though the window is closing right now, but we one ticked the prior 15-minute print, but this is a bearish print, right? And when we see that, typically that's going to have a 1 or 2 bar follow through. So most consistently, when we see a bearish outside print, I mean, this is barely, it's by one tick, but it is. So typically what you see next is at least 1 bar follow through. You often get a retracement into it, but then 2 bars later you're much lower. Not much lower, but you're lower than the low of the bar you took out. And look, you see, we're already moving down lower. So yeah, yep. So I scratched those at 90, 2-point loss. I'm all right with that. Got that moving average right there, 71.85. 11:46. All right. I was hoping that was going to work out, but it didn't. Shit. All right, guys. So that's going to call it for me for today. Hope we do every day. Hope we brought some value to your trading. That's going to wrap it up. Levels are set. The timing is set. Remember, execute, react, don't predict. Wait for price to come to you and trade with discipline. Make sure you plan your trades out, guys. Hope we brought some value to your trading today. If not, let us know how we can add some value to your trading by dropping us a comment, leaving a recommendation, or we're really doing this for you guys, for the watchers, right? So in any way that we can improve on it, please let us know. Feedback is key for that improvement. No thin skin around here. All right, with that said, guys, I'm gonna log off right now. I have to grab something to eat, and then I have a quick meeting. Maybe I'll be back on this afternoon. I know Bo's coming in at 12 noon. We're gonna start trying to get we're gonna ultimately, this is gonna be built out to a morning session, lunch session, and the final hour. but stay tuned for more on that. Okay. Again, please drop for the folks watching on YouTube, drop a comment. Please leave us some recommendations on how we can improve the stream. And for you guys in the private community in the pit, let us know how we can improve the quality of what we're bringing to you every day. For you folks watching on YouTube, you can sign up for the private community at pitbulltraders.com or look in the description. There's a link there. Again, thanks for everything and see y'all tomorrow.